Hey guys, Wade Cashin here with the Retriever Podcast. Today I've got our two trainers here at Texas Duck Dogs. We're located in Gainesville, Texas, and Texas Duck Dogs sponsors this podcast. I've got Garrett Davis with us. He's been about 2.5 years now. We've got Nathan Pyron, who has been here 2 years and a month, almost a full month. So today our subject matter is going to be the quiet command. And we're going to specifically talk about the quiet command in relationship to crate training at first. We're going to do a larger podcast later on crate training and potty breaking and all the importance of it. But today we're just going to assume you've got a new puppy, 8 weeks old, you've got a crate, the puppy's whining and barking and vocalizing. So we want to talk about the importance of the quiet command, the application of the quiet command in the hunting blind, and then how to get there. The step 1, step 2, step 3, and the way we each come at this problem of quiet. So I'm going to start with asking Garrett the importance of the quiet command. If you had to rank it on a 1 to 10 scale, sit, hear, heel, fetch, hold, drop, back, whistle, sit, right over, left over, right back, angle back. So we've got the 12 or 15 total commands needed for your average hunting dog. Most people never even list quiet. Mm-hmm. They haven't thought of quiet. How important on a 1 to 10 scale would you place the quiet command?
I would absolutely rank that up there, 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Right up there at the top.
I agree.
Many applications and situations that quiet is a must. It helps the dog focus sometimes, especially on test day or trial day.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, from the ground up, I would rank it way up there.
Yeah.
Top.
I rank it really high too, and it impacts my home life, my social life, like my neighbors, and then my hunting life and my competition life. Nathan, do you teach your dogs to be quiet?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure about that? No, I'm messing with you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir, I do.
And what was the first dog that you trained to be quiet?
Probably Cricket, my 3-year-old black lab female.
And why did you train Cricket to be quiet? What preempted or prompted you to say, man, I got to teach her to be quiet?
Well, she was kind of driving me nuts.
Tell me about that. Nuts where?
So she would be in her kennel or crate, and I'd be gone.
In the house or on the back porch or what?
Wherever she was.
Yeah.
To begin with, she
Just
would
anytime she was crated.
barking at anything that went by, anything that caught her interest, just trying to get my attention. So currently I taught her to speak, and teaching her the difference between speak and quiet really helped her out too,
Yep.
I think.
And a lot of people use that. They teach the dog to vocalize so they can teach the dog then to be silent. Garrett, how many dogs have you trained specifically on the quiet command?
Mainly just my personal dogs. I mean, with all the dogs that come in here, at some point we're going to teach them to be quiet.
Or encourage them to be quiet.
Right.
But for your personal dogs, Griffin, Knox, did you teach your first dog to be quiet?
I really didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that he wasn't really much of a barker.
Right. No need to.
Yeah, he wasn't very
Did you need it with
reactionary.
Knox? Or I don't see Knox really being that vocal either. You probably needed it with...
You'd be surprised. He actually has a little bit of separation anxiety, so he gets riled up when he was in the crate.
Okay, let's do a sidebar on separation anxiety.
Okay.
Because we frequently throw that label out. And it's probably the appropriate title for it, but I get clients all the time, oh my gosh, can we leave our dog there? He's got such bad separation anxiety. I just don't know what's going to happen to him if he's away from me. And so generally, my personal thoughts on dogs having anxiety. Most dogs mirror body energy. So if you've got some anxiety and you're worried and you're nervous, the dog feeds on that, picks up on that, and then reflects that back to you. You see this when the doorbell rings. Why do dogs go crazy when you ring the doorbell? Usually the people go crazy. And the dogs are just, who's here? Somebody's at the door, honey. Who's knocking? And you projected all of that anxiety and chaos, and the dogs Oh boy, something's going on. Mom and Dad are worked up. And they create this just energy that they're mirroring and reflecting off of the human owners and then off of each other, and it gets real chaotic. And so one of Cesar Millan's constant themes is project calm, assertive energy. If you know Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, he's always saying that. And it's very true. That's important because dogs are going to mirror your body energy. So let's put that into the crate scenario. Mm-hmm. The dog's in the crate. Is he really having anxiety, or is he just mad that he can't go with you? And I typically think the dog is just kind of being bad in the crate. It's like a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum because he can't go with mom, or because you won't let him go into the backyard, or you won't give him the cookie, and he gets all mad and he stomps his feet and he throws himself down and he's just pitching a fit. Normally, that's what I think's going on in the crate. Now let's dissect that a little bit, that illustration. What about that 2-year-old that is genuinely pitching a fit because they're afraid to be out of their mother's presence? That could be real anxiety. Sometimes they're just mad they can't go. Sometimes they're mad or they have some genuine separation anxiety. But I think with dogs, it is normally not separation anxiety. It is normally, I'm going to pitch a fit. I want out of here. I want to go. And they're demanding to go. And that frustration becomes a vocalization. And it starts with a whine and then can be a bark, and an obnoxious bark, and digging on the crate. Mm-hmm. That's a bad dog. I don't care if it is anxiety triggered or if it's anger triggered and they're frustrated and throwing a temper tantrum. Either way, it should not be tolerated. My number one rule for dog training: whatever you tolerate, they will do. My number 2 rule is win every battle. So if you say sit once, you keep saying sit, and you increase correction until the dog gives you compliance. And if you will be consistent with those 2 rules, whatever you tolerate, they will do, and win every battle, you'll find that your dog handling skills will go way up. So let's get right to the quiet command, because this starts in the crate as a puppy. Well, I guess second point, let's go to the second point. What is the application of the quiet command? So Nathan, what's one application that you can think of? Just one.
Well, so one reason to have your dog quiet, especially, well, it annoys everybody, right? Especially when your dog's barking, bouncing off the walls, being annoying.
So that's socially.
So that's socially, yes.
All right, so let's talk about that. Socially has 2 applications: in the house and in the backyard. What do you think the backyard application is?
Well, I mean, you got neighbors out in their yard grilling on the grill or something, having a party. Your dog's just bothering them, bugging them. They're not going to like that at all.
Yeah, and so if you have let your dog vocalize and be loud and obnoxious anytime there was something that he didn't like, or he wanted to be involved in, or anytime something moves. Now, some barking and some vocalization is good and desired. I want the dog to bark at night and do what we call booger barking, or my grandpa would call bay barking, and something's out there and they want to alert. I like that. But if it's incessant and continual, I need to be able to step out my back door, and say, quiet. I can do that on my porch, my personal kennel right off my back porch. It's about 25 yards over there. We keep between 5 and 6 personal dogs in there. When I yell quiet at them, they all get quiet. And they're like, okay, yes, sir. And they shut down. Because I want to come out with a spotlight and see, is there a coyote or something right up close to the house? And if there's not, I go back in. Usually when I present myself, the dogs get quiet anyway. But then if they go on barking and barking and barking and barking, and I poke my head out again, I check, eventually I want to get to the point where I can say quiet, and they'll knock it off and be quiet. So the social aspect, in the backyard for the sake of the neighbors having the barbecue, or in the house, you don't want the dog obnoxiously barking if he's in his crate and he wants to be part of the social gathering, and he's being a bad 3-year-old and throwing a temper tantrum. You want to be able to say no, 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 like you do that toddler, but you need to do it in your dog's language. We'll talk about that in a minute. Garrett, what is another application of the quiet command?
I would say, kind of going back to our conversation about the separation anxiety and or anger.
Sure.
That frustration.
Just being good in the crate.
Just being good in the crate, period.
Yeah. Here's something I want to ask you about. If you have a dog that is pretty vocal, and the ducks, the birds are circling, and he starts barking and he flares, are you getting invited back on that hunt?
No.
Okay, so talk about the hunting application.
Absolutely not. The hunting application, and from what I've found, I feel that it's usually the owners that end up kind of that mirroring and projecting. It's the owners that develop the whining in the blind. We've had multiple dogs leave here, finish our basic hunter program, even go through our senior hunter program, and we get calls on their first few hunts that say, this dog is barking at birds, they're flaring birds, they're screaming.
Who specifically?
The dogs.
I know, but I'm trying to think of specific dogs. Well, I can only think of one.
Yeah, the yellow dog Ruby.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Was the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is we get in this routine and we don't think about how the dog was actually trained. When we start our drive build in the yard, we're saying, hey, hey, hey.
Sure.
Hey, 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 hey. So we're teasing them up, and that's an immediate cue for them to get up on their feet,
get excited,
start moving around. Well, what do we do when we got birds working on the right-hand side and they catch us off guard? Hey, guys, hey, we've got birds over here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we put off this adrenaline energy.
We're excited. Here come the ducks.
The dog cues off of that,
sure,
and now they're up and moving, and now they're getting in trouble because they're moving.
Or they're not getting in trouble because you're looking at the birds and you've totally ignored the dog, and you're putting off cues to the dog to get excited.
Right.
But instead of paying attention out of your peripheral, and you see that dog raise up, Nick, sit. You've got to be paying attention as much to the dog as to the birds and as to your buddies in the blind.
Yep.
And so that's what I think you're right. They're just mirroring our excitement. Oh, here come the ducks. And we're moving and wiggling. And the dogs are like, oh, here we go. Like that. And they build in this frustration of wanting the birds builds into a vocalization. So how do you tamper that? Let's get into the quiet command. It starts as a little puppy in a crate. What is the problem? Well, the problem is the dog is vocally asserting themselves. People don't see it that way. They see it some other way, or whatever. But I'm telling you as a pro trainer, when that dog starts to whine or bark, it's a vocal assertion. Essentially, he's demanding something. And that's why I love the illustration of a toddler pitching a fit. Your dog is communicating to you and they're kind of demanding something. So, before you start correcting your dog for a whine or a bark, you have to go through your mental checklist. Has the dog been aired? Has the dog been watered? Has the dog been fed? Is the dog having diarrhea and potty issues, which might trigger it to whine, to want to go out and need more airtime and those things? So I'm saying, aside from when you would expect normal vocalizations, you need to be prepared as an owner to communicate to the dog that the whine or the bark is unwanted. So I'll just tell you what I do with little puppies. We take a crate, we put it right next to our bed. The smaller the puppy, the smaller the crate. We have 3 different size crates sitting right here, a small, medium, and a large. As the puppy grows, the crate gets bigger. So we start with the small crate for the small puppy. It's laying right next to my bed. I've done my job all day. I fed early in the morning. I fed again mid-afternoon. I don't feed again at night right before bed because I want the colon to be empty and the dog to have fully relieved itself. I've also watered the dog. I've made sure that there's been multiple opportunities for water. But then again, I'm not going to water past 6 p.m. because I'm wanting to build in the good potty habits of the dog, and I'm not wanting to have accidents in the crate. So routine and structure, probably like you did with your kid, or your parents did with you when they were raising you, is going to be your first step to teaching the quiet command, because you want to make sure that all of the criteria requirements for the dog has been met, that he should not vocalize. So he shouldn't need to pee. He shouldn't need to poop. He should have been allowed to exercise and run and play during the day. The sun has set. It's 8:30, 9 o'clock. We're in bed, and you had just aired the dog at 8:30, 8:45, 9 o'clock. He's in his crate. He's went pee. He's went poop. He's at everything. Now it's time to go lights out. The dog goes in the crate, starts to whine. You don't do anything about it. What happens? The whine keeps going. You don't do anything about it, or you do the wrong thing. Oh, what's wrong, little baby? And you reach down there with your fingers and you touch them and pet them. And what do they learn? Hey, every time I whine, they give me some attention. Mm-hmm. They talk to me. They put their fingers in and touch me. And then you pull them away and it's time to go to sleep. Puppy's whining again. Puppy's whining some more. Puppy's whining. You know, people do all kinds of things. They lock the crate in the garage and let the dog just scream bloody murder for 3 hours till it gets out of its system. And sometimes it never gets out of their system. And you're allowing a vocal assertion, a vocal demand for something. Your interaction with them, your physical touch, or your verbal interaction. So I put the crate down there. I've made the checklist. There is no reason this dog should be whining other than maybe they want my attention, but it's not time to get my attention. So we're in crate. We're laid down. It's lights out. Puppy starts to whine. The first thing I'll do is just no. I'll just touch the top of the crate. No. And for some puppies, that's enough. That's it. That one time. And they got it. Now, usually what I do is I'll say, quiet. I'll go ahead and start to vocally label the quiet command. Now, if it's really my first few interactions with the puppy, maybe they don't understand quiet, they don't understand this is negative, and so I will sometimes label that no, because usually in the house, I've tried to already start teaching no with some kind of physical touch reprimand. A little swat on the nose, something to discourage the dog from jumping, and I associate that with the negative word no. Then later, a few days later, I'm starting to introduce the quiet command. I can say, quiet, no, or no, quiet. But it's important that as the hand hits the crate, the command, the verbal cue is coming out, because it's that loud thud and a little bit of a startleization that's going to get them. Now, usually instead of the top of the crate, I use the grate, the front door, and I slap the front door, but either one of those. I don't want to do it in a horribly bad way that it's just, some really dramatic, creating a lot of percussion and everything. Why? I don't want to ultimately make the dog noise shy. My main goal is to not make the dog noise shy, but just to communicate that that's unpleasant. We don't want you doing that. We're going to draw a line. You can't whine right now. There's no need to. I will say it's important for your hunting dog that you are balancing any kind of, crate slapping or whatever with some kind of positive noise conditioning at the food pan. So when you're dropping that food bowl and they know it's coming, you're stomping your feet and clapping your hands. The first few days, put the food bowl down there and let them start to eat and do some, stomp your foot, maybe hit the counter while they're eating. You want to create some loud noises in association with the food so that you're positively associating the loud noises. So I'm assuming that you guys are doing that. So when you then give them a verbal no or a quiet with a crate slap or the gate slap, quiet, no. You should be countering any negative association they would have to noise to positive association to noise at the food bowl. And you can build the food bowl positive noise association, and we'll do another podcast about positive noise association and how to do that the right way. But back to your crate training. So then you say, well, Wade, what if I've got that dog that is already just screaming and barking in the crate, and we neglected it, and we let it go on for 2 months, and you think it's anxiety, but really it's just a vocal assertion or demand for your attention or demand to be out of the crate. What do you do now? Your reaction is still going to be something similar. You're going to go up to the crate gate, no, And the dog may not even care that you're doing that. Do it again, a little harder. No, quiet. No. If they get quiet, I usually label that with good. Good. So I'm using a verbal positive. How does the dog know that the good word is positive? Because I have given him treats when he sat with good. As I've released the treat into the puppy's mouth, I say good. So I've created some level of mental positive association for the dog in relationship to the term good. So now when I apply that to the crate, quiet. They get quiet? Good. Good. And if you want to work on this during the daytime and not at night next to your bed, let's say you're watching this at 2 p.m. and you want to work on it right now, I like to tell people, put a wall between you. So go to a doorway, put the dog on one side, and you get on the other side. And you put the dog in, kennel, the dog gets in, and then you disappear. What do you know they're going to do? They're going to whine or bark. And you're right there on the other side of the door. So all you have to do is lean your hand forward. No, quiet. Timing is important. You don't want the crate on the other side of the room where you have to get up and take 5 steps. Now what the dog thinks is when I whine, they get out of bed and come see me. See, your timing's off. You want to make sure that it's the instant that the whine or bark begins. So that means your relationship and proximity to the crate has to be close. The doorway between you is perfect, right next to the side of the bed. If you're officing and the dog is there with you and you're wanting to work on this while you're officing at home and the dog's there, put the crate close within arm's reach or hand's reach so you can say, no, quiet. Now what if you say, Wade, my dog just laughs at me when I slap the crate and say no. Well, you've done a bad job of being the alpha pack leader for your dog. That's a reality you need to accept and embrace. They don't respect you or your authority, and they don't have a negative association for the word no, and you need to work on that. You need to balance train, and there's got to be good and there's got to be positive. But some people are out of balance, and it's only positive. And you're only redirecting with positive energy and treats, and you're not giving the dog any level of negative association or consequence for unwanted behaviors. And it makes it harder for your dog to learn. We'll talk about primary language of dogs in another podcast, but for right now, just trust me. Yes, positive association, but you must have some negative association about unwanted behavior patterns or you're setting yourself up for disaster. So your dog laughs when you hit the grate and say no. You need to work on that in all kinds of areas for unwanted behaviors, but let's apply it just to the crate. You might have to open the door to the crate and squeeze the muzzle. So you're behind the door, you walk away, you slap the grate, say quiet, and the dog just keeps barking. Okay, and you slap it again a little harder, and you say quiet again and no, and they're still just barking in your face. Open the crate, squeeze the muzzle, quiet. Once they get quiet, good. Good. Use that verbal good. Now, if you have not been consistent and not done any negative association for the word no or positive association for the word good, what I'm telling you right now is probably not going to help much. And you need to reevaluate the structure and leadership that you're giving your dog. He's looking to you to be his alpha pack leader, and if you are not providing that, you are setting yourself up for failure the entire time that you work with your dog. So those are some helpful cues, helpful practical things that you can do to teach a dog to be quiet in the crate. And anytime they vocalize, if you've taught it in the crate well, that's why crate training is important. The dog has to learn that there are some times we're just down and quiet and settled and not up and bouncing and checking every window and barking. Structure, dogs thrive on structure. They're designed to live in a pack. And you think, well, that crate that you're using, that's so restrictive and mean. Think about a dog in the wild or a wolf pack or a coyote pack. Or how many animals do you know that live in a den? A small, tight, confined space with one opening. Most dogs are comforted, and that becomes their home and their environment because it's their den. And there's one place that they can look out and they can defend and protect themselves. So that's another reason I advocate crate training for all dogs. Crate training with boundaries. Crate training with structure. Structure and routine, your dog is going to thrive. I personally do not like the black wire crates, especially a large breed dog. He's just going to take his muzzle, and you put a 2-year-old dog in that, and he's just going to rip that wire out and get out. I've seen it happen a ton of times. I remember Hershey. And Hershey was so bad, he actually chewed the walls off of my plastic crate. I had one of the cheap plastic crates, and I had to get a more expensive.
Cost
Yeah.
me $4,000.
Oh gosh.
With Knox.
With Knox.
Yeah, I had a.
He got out of the wire one.
Well, I had a towel underneath it, keeping it separated from the wire crate, and because he was able to grab other stuff around it.
Okay, help me to understand. What do you mean a towel
So
underneath?
I had a towel underneath the wire crate, so it had the plastic insert on the bottom.
Yeah, the plastic tray on the bottom, and then a towel underneath that.
A towel underneath
because
that.
He's on your hardwood floors.
He bounced that sucker across, upset because he's in the crate all day.
Yeah.
Pulled the towel in from underneath. He managed to get the plastic up out of the bottom of it, and then he pulled string by string, and it got compacted, and his duodenum had to have it surgically removed.
Oh,
$4,000. So
$4,000. There you go.
Yeah.
I understand. Now, maybe if there's some crate manufacturers out there that would like for us to talk about their product, I can think of at least 3 different crates that I would recommend. But for now, if you don't want to spend a lot of money or you're not sure what to do, go to Academy or Tractor Supply or Atwoods, whatever farm and ranch store, something like that. And the crates are sized, different sized dogs. And just see what your dog can comfortably turn around in, and that's big enough. And they can start creating good behavior patterns in the crate. If your dog is, I do not advocate for 12 hours in the crate, that kind of stuff. So your lifestyle and work schedule has to accommodate your dog being in a crate. If not, you're much better off on a concrete bottom kennel, 5x10 kennel with plenty of shade and water and fans for the summertime, a doghouse for heat in the wintertime, and you're better off to have that dog outside than trying to crate him 12 hours a day. He's not built for that or designed to that. I'm trusting that you're exercising your dog thoroughly and you're working them with bumpers and they're getting their energy out. And then structure and crate training is good and great for your dog. And it's where you start teaching quiet. Later on, you're traveling to the hunting blind, the dog's, in the back seat, or you're just traveling around town. A dog that whines and barks as you're driving through town, that's going to go away because you can say, quiet. You can shut it down. Dog's in the crate in the bed of the truck as you're driving down the farm road to the pond, and if he's vocalizing, you can lean out the window, quiet. You can give your dog the quiet command. You're in the duck blind, the dog's sitting on the stand, the birds are circling, they start to whine. Quiet. They know what it is. You've taught the standard. They've associated it with the whining and barking. You're not going to have any problems. We're going to have a problem is if your dog's 2.5 years old and you're going to try to introduce the quiet command and it's the first time. Don't do that out in the field. Go all the way back to square one and start at the crate at home. Do things that you know will trigger that dog to whine and bark, and you correct him with quiet. Eventually, you can use your training collar, your e-collar, electric collar, and you can, instead of slapping the crate, you can associate it with a collar nick, and the dog can learn that the quiet command can also be reinforced with the e-collar. You need to do proper e-collar conditioning, and we can make a podcast on that in the future. But applications for the quiet command, it will be so rewarding that your dog can stay in the backyard loose and the neighbors can have a barbecue and you can open the back door and you can say, Duke, quiet. Oh, yes, sir. And he's got it. I can't bark at the neighbors. Your neighbors will love you. You'll feel like a king because you've got a well-behaved dog that respects you. You have a dog that's quiet on hunts, quiet in the house, quiet in the crate, quiet in the car, quiet in the backyard. Teach the quiet command. You won't regret it. We hope this podcast helps you start your puppies right and let us take over from there. Happy training, happy hunting, and see you in the field.